everyone. Welcome to the 4:15 panel here at Perfect Loudness. My name is Vanessa and I'm going to be your moderator this afternoon. So this panel is talking about careers from music to music tech. I work at Melodics. I'm the Director of People and Culture here at Melodics, and I have three of our wonderful employees here alongside me, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves first of all.
Kia ora, I'm Aria, and I work upstairs at Melodics, and I'm also a musician, and for Melodics I work as a product delivery manager. Go for it.
Hey, I'm Indie. I work in the music team. I'm a music producer. Yeah.
Cool. Kia ora, my name is Crystal, and I also work at the music team as the keys instrument lead, and I'm also a musician and jazz pianist.
Nice. Okay, so my first question to each of you is, I guess, tell us about your music career and then how that's intersected with your role at Melodics or your work at Melodics.
It's a long story. I'll try and
We
keep
got
it
time,
short.
don't worry.
But I feel like some of you already probably know this kōrero. But so I was at Auckland Uni and I did like a BA, just a typical young person, like trying to figure out what I want to do with my life. And I also did a Bachelor of Music, and I was doing professional voice in the Bachelor of Music and did lots of opera and stuff. And then after a while, I moved overseas and was like, I think I'm going to explore the world, and went to Australia and then Berlin. And I was kind of working in research, mainly social research, through my BA. I'd done sociology. But yeah, I eventually ended up falling into tech through, basically I was just in a bit of a boring day job with, just like paper pushing and in accounts. No shade to anyone who works in accounts, it's actually quite a fulfilling job, but it wasn't necessarily, ringing my bell. And yeah, my boss was just like, you're obviously not like feeling fulfilled, like we've got this big migration tech project, would you be interested in project managing? So I just kind of like tried it out. And then I went to Berlin, and I was still doing music through all of these sort of day jobs. I think we can all relate to that as musicians. You kind of need to have another source of income, especially in New Zealand. I moved to Berlin and started working for a learning app named Babbel. So it was kind of like doing learning stuff, education, I guess, as well as tech. And then, in the night times, going to techno clubs and learning how to, open up all those different places in your musical brain that does. And then I moved on from Babbel and I started working as a freelance contract researcher, like user researcher. And I got a job with Ableton. Mainly, it was helpful to name drop the New Zealanders that I knew that were associated with the company. And I just kind of hassled them regularly until they gave me a job, which, persistence is key. And then I moved back home, and I had already kind of approached Melodics once and been like, hey, I like what you guys are doing. I reckon I could do some stuff for you. So again, I was this sort of nagging until I got a job. Yeah.
And that paid off, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's probably enough for me.
I didn't know you were also in Berlin doing tech. Holy shit. Am I allowed to swear?
We learn about each other today as well.
So mine is a little bit different from Maria's, but also I went to Berlin as well. So I have been obsessed with music production even since I was in school. So I was like, just like holed up in the music room doing like Logic Pro, learning how to use that, doing it terribly at the start. And then I was in a band called Dopra and then I started my own solo project called Indie, and then I moved to Berlin and was very broke looking for work. I knew a few people. I knew Ruby, who works at Melodics. I knew that she worked at a really cool place. But I I did this really weird tech job at like a Berlin startup where this guy was convinced he was a genius, and he was like, soundtracks to your life, like everyone will want one, but we're starting with just cars, so like when people turn the steering wheel there's like a swell of strings. So it was really weird, and I had to learn how to use this bizarre program. I think they're still going but like, yeah, it was like not released, but it was just like this weird program that I had to learn how to use that was like automating different like sounds and like musical elements to like different movements of a car. Super weird. And I did it for about 2 months, and then I was like, this is weird. But Ruby introduced me to Roddy, also, who was in Berlin at the time. So I'm just looking straight at you while I do this. And then, yeah, from there, I think they used Precipice, one of my solo songs, for the keys instrument content. And then after that, I started making more lessons for them freelance. And then when I came back here, I started working for Melodics as an employee. Yeah.
Well, I probably have the most conventional route of starting piano from when I was young and going to do a Bachelor of Music degree in jazz performance. And for a lot of the jazz graduates, what happens is they do a lot of teaching as an itinerant teacher in schools, if not classroom teaching even. So I did, straight after graduating, I did itinerant teaching. Probably it's been like a decade or so. And while doing that, I was also, what was I doing? I was doing gigging, lots of gigging, session stuff, bands. And then while I was in Europe playing with Princess Chelsea, it was Ruby and Roddy again who hit me up. I was in Berlin for like a day, and they wanted coffee with me, and then I got a job offer. And to be honest, I had no idea what Roddy was talking about. Apart from the fact that they needed, it is a music learning app, and they needed someone who had good music education background, which I understood that part, and I got the offer and I said yes to it. And ever since then, I think we were working maybe around similar times. Yeah, trying to make lessons for keys in the app.
Very cool. Before we dive into a little bit more about like day to day at Melodics for each of you, like I'm one of the like least musical people at Melodics. It's like a little fun fact about me, not even that fun. And so I'm always like in such awe of the people that I work with, and I would love for each of you to share like what you are most proud of from your music career so far.
Sure. Just recently, I released my debut EP, which thank you very much. Which was it was kind of like the birth of a child in a way. It's sort of like it's very, very a lot of work, and I'm pretty proud of the fact that I'm still alive after it. But yeah, that's probably something that I'm pretty excited about, and just like I guess. Starting a solo project after, being around in the music industry for a long time, sort of like there's a lot of focus on doing things when you're like 14 or like 18. And I'm like, how about in your 30s? Yeah, so I'm proud of that.
I'll go. We're just doing it this way.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah,
Great.
keeps it consistent for the audience.
Sorry.
What are you proud of, Indira?
From your music career.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
You know what? I've actually had to. I've been thinking about this a bit. I don't know if one specific musical project I'm more proud of than the other, but I think I'm lately, especially, I've been thinking about how much I've thrown myself into situations where I literally had no idea what I was doing and was definitely did not have the skill set to actually do that thing at the start. So I guess I'm most proud of having to really fast learn an entirely new skill, or how to like produce at a certain caliber, or like in a certain genre. Like I had to completely learn how to produce in multiple genres when I started Melodics. My like learning trajectory has been wild. So I think I'm just most proud of being able to learn really fast and like to constantly challenge like where I'm at as a producer. So yeah, I guess that's what I'm most proud of. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm gonna add on to what you said and just gonna let everyone know that Indy picked up the harp last year.
Oh, I forgot about
But
that.
she has it so perfect now, and her playing is amazing.
Thanks, Crystal.
And for me, I think I'm similar to Aria. Last year, I've been playing for a lot of people, but didn't really have a project of my own. And we actually have a band called Phoebe Rings that has 3/4 of our music team members.
Who is the fourth person? Are they looking for a job?
So
Roddy, do you know this person?
he works at a record distributing store, and
That sounds boring. Yeah.
he's incredibly skilled. He can do anything. Just to let you know.
Great.
But our team leader Ben plays the bass, and our drums instrument lead Alex plays the drums. I play keys, and Simeon, who's not a part of Melodics yet, plays guitar. But no,
Matter
it was
of time.
Matter of time. And we released our debut EP last year, and it was personally a really, really great achievement because I've never had released any recordings before, so it was really cool.
That's awesome. I would love for each of you to maybe bring your day-to-day of like actually what you do at Melodics to life. If we're thinking about like careers, you know, from music to music tech, tell us about your music tech life.
Yeah. Okay. There's not a huge amount of consistency from me day to day. I think that's the one thing that is, consistent is change from day to day. But I think I like to think of my job sometimes, so product delivery manager, as it's kind of like a translation role in a way. So there's lots of different sort of jargon that each team uses and ways that they think about their particular tasks. And they all need to sort of understand each other and in order for us to produce something like as a wider company and deliver the product. So sort of a lot of listening and having conversations to incoming requirements from one person and then translating those to someone who might be building those things and thinking about like how does the code base, how's that structured and what does that mean for the music team, for example, in their day-to-day work and their workflow. So things like releases, so we have a client app that we release regularly, and then we have website changes or updates that we make. Geeky stuff, which I like.
Sounds good.
I think that's probably a good enough go.
My role started quite eclectic. I think I was doing working really closely with Crystal, which I still do, but I was working really closely with Crystal about like the content on the keys, for the keys learners, and sort of doing the copy, a lot of the stuff which is like learn the left hand, and also the finger allocations, and just talking about what the trajectory of learning is on the app for keys players. And I also sometimes produce a bit of like the music for the other instruments as well. So all the lessons generally have a backing music to them. I don't know
Yeah. Go hard.
basic
Explain it
to
all.
explain
Yeah.
this, So I'm one of the people who produces the music for that.
So like playing all the instruments,
Or
For the-
creating them.
creating them.
So I create
Vanessa.
like the backing audio that you're playing, like do 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 do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's definitely my main job now, is doing the music production
Yeah.
for that. Yeah.
Cool.
But also deciding like what we want, what we hope for people to learn from that lesson, and like what genre, like deciding what genre to do it in, and what people will most enjoy as well is important.
Before I forget, I'll mention that it's really cool. Could work together as well at times, depending on the project. At the start of the year, we were trying to tried to tackle a little bit of user research to find out what users are into and how their experiences are with the app. And we got lots of help from Aria, who helped us how to write the questionnaires for the users and not be too engaged with them personally.
We had that big
to not smile too much.
Really?
Well,
Oh my
smile a
gosh.
little bit,
Not
but
when they're saying things that you want to hear, and you're like, oh yeah, that sounds
Oh,
good.
have to be
right.
Oh, you like that button colour? Oh yeah.
unbiased.
exactly. But I think we did end up smiling a lot.
Too much.
Too much. But so we have our roles, but sometimes we do try and work together depending on what projects are coming up. But I mainly try and look at the curriculum of Keys and try and see what do you call it, like the contemporary Keys learners really need, like practical skills as well as theoretical knowledge, and try and really meet the demand and also compromise a little bit with the UI we have and try and make the most of it for the users. So, for example, we have our guided path, which kind of acts like a textbook, I would say. So for learners who are really good with very structured learning, we tried to really fill those pages with indie. And we thought that there might need to be more beginner learning so that the learning curve isn't like whoosh. So we tried to make more beginner lessons and so on. So that's been quite fulfilling, I would say.
As a beginner, I very much appreciate all these beginner lessons. That's for sure.
Crystal, sorry.
No, go for
I
it.
just want to say Crystal is an absolute theory wizard. Like she knows so much theory, and often other music team members will be messaging her, being like, "Hey, Crystal, what does this mean? What's that concept?"
My honest degree.
That university education coming in handy, eh? Glad it's helping for at least one person on this panel, not me. So how do you find that your two professional worlds, like, both complement and also challenge each other? And what I mean is, like, your day-to-day role at Melodics, but then also all of your very active careers as musicians.
Yeah, it's interesting because I guess my music life has, like, there's been a lot of teaching. I think we've spoken about that already today, but, I don't know if this happens in other countries, but in New Zealand and Aotearoa, it feels like as a musician, you a lot of the time end up in a teaching space as well. And that was always, I enjoyed that. And I'm actually a yoga teacher as well. So I think I have this teaching, I like that. And so it doesn't surprise me, I guess, that intertwines with my day job at Melodics, where we're teaching people. Because, it's easy for me to get into that space, that pedagogical space, where you're considering what does someone need for this learning journey, and it's work that doesn't tire me out, it's kind of, I'm passionate about it. So that's cool. And then, of course, I am a musician, so I think about myself, when I try and learn one of the new key songs or something, and I'm like, oh, it'd be much better or helpful if I had this or that, and so it's nice. But I also, it was interesting as well, not being a fully beginner coming into the product. I had all these like biases of being like, an experienced musician. But then, I guess when it comes to like my solo projects or like gigs on the weekend and things like that, it's quite challenging. It's a whole nother job, and it requires so much emotional energy to perform and to sort of contribute in a meaningful way in a band setting. But I think ultimately they complement each other because, Melodics is a very team-focused company. We work together in teams, and there's very little like you're over there and you're alone for the whole day, just like tapping and coding real hard or something. And I think that's the same with being in a band. You really need a collaborative approach, and I've always been a collaborative musician at heart. So, I think they complement each other well.
My stuff is very transferable because I'm a music producer for myself and also for Melodics. So often when I'm deciding on a new lesson to do, I'll sneak something in there that I've been wanting to try for ages. Like, I've been wanting to try this side chaining technique, and I want to see how that'll work. And then and then I learn something from that, and then that's a skill that I can take into my own music. So it's wonderful. I actually think I've learned so much through doing Melodics. So it's very, the thing is, when you're making music for the app, you do have to not pour like all of your emotions into it, I guess, is the one thing. Is like, it took me a while to learn that, like I have to just sort of like be okay with it going into the world and like not be too precious about it and stuff, rather than like for my own personal stuff, I'm like, it's my baby, like it must be perfect. But you just simply can't have that attitude when you're producing music, on demand and like quite fast. That's the one thing that's like a challenge, but it's really great to have the skill of being like able to just be like, yep, that's done, like move on. So that's really a great skill to have.
I suck at finishing things, and it really taught me how to finish things. But I'm probably quite similar with Aria in this respect too. Long experience of teaching has really helped me a lot when I am creating content, and as a performer as well. I think just being able to work as a session keyboardist or like a band member in other bands had made me realize the skills that the contemporary keys learners really need, as well as like the traditional kind of approach that you have as a school music teacher. So I think the hybrid of those is Melodics in a way. So that's been quite helpful. My challenge is that because I've been traditionally trained as a musician, I'm really not friendly with DAWs. I haven't really used Ableton or even Logic or other kind of DAWs. I used to really hate it, but I kind of got forced into using it a little bit more. And I'm very grateful for that because it's actually been helping my like musical career as a for my own project. So it taught me heaps.
Oh, that's so interesting. Staying on the note of transferable skills, aside from like being amazing music makers, what else do you feel like you've been able to transfer from your music career into just like a professional job in a technology company?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Or what goes the other way?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's kind of the other way for me, because in my music career, I was always sort of really, really into it, but I was on like the third carriage back. I wasn't at the front of the train like, choo-choo, And so recently when I've had to do my own solo project and like be my own like manager and work with my publicist and like be my Instagram social media poster and organize a band and book rehearsal rooms, book gigs, all of these things that take so much project management skills. I was like, this is what my day job is like. And it helped a lot. But it reminded me of like how much non-music work you have to do music. But yeah, I think that's really helped me to achieve that big goal that I wanted to achieve, was having project management skills.
I was struggling with this question.
Because you kind of said that lots of it is transferable for you. Yeah.
It's all sort of like an amalgamation of everything, really. Although I'd have to say the opposite way around. Like, if there's something that I could take from work that it's really, really helped, is that my theory knowledge has had to be way better. I mean, I learned piano growing up, and I did know some theory when I came to the job, but especially through Crystal, it has been just like, it is astronomically better, and it has really, really helped me a lot.
Organization skills. I have learned through this job. I think Aria might have mentioned this point as well, but I think from being a band member in a lot of different projects made me into a better team player, and I think that helps to be a nice member of the music team and to be supportive of each other, and because I feel like that does matter a lot. And if you have each other's support, even if you are getting through a difficult project or something that just, I can't meet the time management or something, someone can actually help you out, and I would do the same, and I think that did help a lot.
Can I say one more thing? That's a great point, Crystal. But I also think, like, in the spirit of this, like in today, if we're thinking about bringing together the music world and the tech world and what musicians can bring to the tech scene, if you like something that I noticed, especially with working with the music team at Melodics, which is really, really inspiring, and notice in myself a little bit too, is that creative flow state that we talk about, achieving within music making and within music practice, and the way that opens up certain parts of your creative mind, I guess, and being able to, in a supported way in your day job at the office, lean into that feeling, and get paid to do it, and the way that we have ideation around certain projects with that creativity sort of like held and like encouraged, and I think it makes it a way nicer work experience,
Yeah, it's incredible actually. When you just said that, I thought about how encouraged I felt to do my own work as well, my own music as well. Like, Melodics has always felt like such a safe space to talk about what you're doing and be excited about what you're doing. And it's never felt like one or the other. It's like being good at music outside of your job helps you to be good at this job as well. So it's like a win. It's so amazing.
Yeah, I love that. I often, when we're talking to candidates or going through the recruiting process. Sorry, I just saw Sam Gribben with a huge grin on his face, and it's kind of put me off what I was about to say. I always talk about how so many of our team don't work a 40-hour week. None of us on this stage, not that I'm a musician, that's not what I spend my free time doing,
not
but
yet.
None of us, not yet, Vanessa, soon. Could be the fifth member. But none of us work a 40-hour week, and because we dedicate our time to other things, and you three dedicate your time to your nurturing your music career, and it is a win-win. It's a win for Melodics, as well. And I think that's it's just such a beautiful thing, and not many other industries I think can say that. I mean, at least in other companies that I've worked at. So. We're all here under kind of the umbrella of the growing music tech industry in New Zealand, which is amazing. Would you have any advice for anybody who is at the beginning of their journey, who might be a musician, a amateur musician or quite a professional musician, and who wants to get into this scene with these companies?
Yeah, I think my top tips, I guess, are like leaning into the learning side of things, which Indy talked about. I think that's one of the similarities between music tech and music, is just this, like, you have to have a hunger for learning, and you have to know how to learn, like, in a slick way, and know what works for you personally. And obviously, maybe you heard me at the beginning, persistence, like, you really, especially in New Zealand and Aotearoa, it is a small pond and it's quite cliquey here. You just really have to get your face in front of other people and start the conversation and just let people know you're interested. And it might take like 13 tries or something, but yeah, persistence is key. And yeah, just, I guess, just like, if you really want it, just like having some discipline around like doing your music. Like, it's easy for us all to admit, I guess, that we buy gear or like say we're going to do things, but yeah, trying to just like actually do the doing of the music, and the path will become clear.
Nice.
Yeah, I think at the start I definitely did too much of the music. And I know that sounds really like a weird sentence, but what I mean by that is that I was this like complete musical hermit. I did not go out and socialize ever. And I was just convinced that if I stayed in my room and worked on my music every day for long enough, I would become good enough that people would notice. But actually, what I realized is that you actually have to be out in the community, and like making friends and like really like seeing other musicians and like being part of like the scenes that you want to be part of. So like if you want to be part of a music tech scene, I think you go and find people who are like-minded, and you kind of become part of that group or part of that community. I mean, it's great also to get really good at what you do, but I think if you don't have the people around you, that's the most, you know, that work is never going to be seen, you know. Yeah, that's what I think at least.
I'm just trying to imagine someone who's like me, who's like really acoustically kind of trained and maybe not so tech savvy. It's probably a good idea to get into doors. It's very important. Whatever you do, I think as long as it's a music tech company, you would have to probably deal with it. But also, having said that though, when I did get into the company, I was very worried that I would have to be like the master of coding and, you know, be able to do all these things. But no, I didn't have to. And I think what mattered more for me was like, be confident in the skill sets that you have already. You are good. You don't have to be, you know, going, oh, I'm not techie enough, you know. And I feel like the skill sets that I really had to develop was having a really wide understanding of the genres and what people are into these days, and more of that kind of research so that I can really meet the user's demands, rather than coding. But also, if you do know how to code, that's a plus.
Yeah, it's always a win in this market, everyone. Do you have any advice for like the music tech industry in general to be more inclusive of musicians that don't come from a tech background, or just people in general, I guess, that don't come from a technology background?
I don't know if I have advice. I just have opinions.
we love to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess my journey is kind of interesting in that I was much like you, you know, I was classically trained. I just did piano. I hadn't used a DAW. And then I got this job at Ableton, and I was like in a thriving techno scene, and I like was forcing myself to assimilate. And so I was like, need to understand. And I think it was around the time Push 2 came out, and I like got a push and was like, right, I'm on live. And then it was like, then you just hear the tumbleweeds as I'm like, oh, what? And I think just it feels like there's this sort of groundswell movement of maybe this move towards what I've been calling, which maybe isn't the best name, but democratization of music. So just like it's more accessible, and it can be niche and complex and super like nerdy if that's what someone wants, but also having that other end of the spectrum more open, which I think is what Melodics is leaning into, you know, like you don't, you know, that people come up to me and say like, oh, I wish I could sing, you know, and I'm like, you can, you've got a voice, like anyone can sing, but I mean, it's not as easy, right? But like just that knowledge that it's not like this binary of like you're good at music or you're not. And just moving away from that in general. And I think the music tech scene is finally understanding that that's a better way forward for business as well. So, yeah, I think that's happening.
Wait, so this was advice for the music tech industry?
Yeah, if like you could even think about like giving me advice, right, on how we can make even Melodics. It's like, this is live advice, everybody. Like how we can make it more inclusive for people who don't come from a traditional technology background.
Can you come back to me?
Absolutely.
I can go.
Yeah, go.
I think when we did work with contractors, I'm just speaking for like our company, but we recently have our new intern Chip Matthews, who's played bass with you, and he's an amazing session musician, so experienced, and he is probably like good with tech too, but like I feel like every new contractor or like some kind of short-term experience or whoever, we've got so much to learn from them. And he's already writing a lot of things on, like a lot of observations on how he's felt around pads, and that's going to help us heaps because it's really good piece of feedback. And working with external producers, because like the production style is all very different amongst people, and we worked with a really cool producer called Shannon, and that was a really cool experience. So every opportunity we have, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Crystal. I feel like the thing with having new people who don't come from a tech background is that they're so able to spot things that we can't spot about like our own product, because they think in a whole different way and they approach things differently. So yeah, really listening to and like valuing those people's opinion is massive. I even remember when I started at Melodics, Roddy was like, yeah, tell us as much feedback as possible right now, because your first impression is so important, and it's like it's sort of like important from this, not necessarily naive, but you know, this sort of
like fresh eyes.
Yeah, it's so fresh, and like you just don't. You wouldn't. I would not notice those things now that a year on. You know.
Yeah, it's like you can't see the wood from the trees when you've been there for a while. Yeah, for sure. Does anyone from the audience have any questions?
Yes, I've got one. I find it really interesting because I feel like with the music tech space, not going to throw any shade on well-known startups like Zero and whatnot startups.
Did we all hear that in the back? Shade from Jonah on Zero.
Yeah, we've got these tech success stories that are a lot, probably more well-known, like Zero and Veeam and stuff like that. But I feel like in the music tech space, you've got this really interesting kind of crossover, because you've got these very kind of artistic people like yourselves in the music side of things, but you're having to work quite closely with, this is quite complicated software as well that you're developing, and software engineers who are very kind of technical. Are there any kind of, how do you find that? Is that something that's either, how does that all work in terms of, it's probably a little trickier, I imagine, than it would be, say, working at Zero or something where it's just if you're building some accounting software, you don't necessarily have all that kind of music knowledge and a bit of that artistic kind of views on things. Is that a challenge? Is that an opportunity? Do you find how you guys navigate that?
I think it's easy to think that would be the case, but I think it's actually like not that. Like once you set up that environment of like letting people and trusting that there won't be judgment if they share and lean into that creative. Most humans have it innately in there. They just sort of like keep it private and separate from their work. That's my experience anyway. But I definitely think in general, it's not so much that the creative thinking is difficult to like weave into the technical work. I think that we're just, the space of tech has moved so fast and vast since it sort of blew up a little while ago, and so we're still kind of learning what it means to be in tech, and like the people who were like, I think just like the diversity aspect of like who actually is building things is changing and should continue to change, and that makes it easier to incorporate all sorts of different perspectives and worldviews, like not just creative music ones but other ways of thinking.
When I first started at Melodics, we were using like JSON, like a tiny bit of code. I mean, I don't even know if it's coding, but it was like we were typing out some stuff.
Zeros and ones.
To do like the finger allocation. So that's like for, the thumb plays this note. And I felt like I was in the Matrix. It was awesome. I have to say, it was great. So as a creative person coming to the tech stuff, I loved it.
No, I agree. I still use JSON instead of the tooling panel just to experience the Matrix world. As a teacher, I think I'm very happy that I'm doing teaching through tech, because I get live feedback, and I don't really get that from like a one-on-one lesson where I'm more of a dictator to the students, and I go, do this, have you done your homework? The tension. But with Melodics, you have this open, like, is it MPS? The scoring?
MPS.
That goes, we get so many of them, and we also get very detailed feedback, and even user interviews where it's even more detailed, and that's been a very cool experience because we get honest feedback from people rather than students going, that's cool, but
I know I'm supposed to be moderating, but I also have an answer to your question, so I'm just going to give my opinion. I think like within any kind of technology, any tech company, you often have a lot of people like software engineers who hold a lot of like technical privilege, right? Like they know how to code. They are the ones who are the experts in their area, and that's what we're all here to do. We're all here to like build a software product, and so we better all rally around the software engineers. And we have software developers at Melodics, but I think we have like two schools of like technical privilege here, and that we have people who are like obviously amazing at building software, but then as we've just heard, like we have this amazing team of musicians who are great at that as well. And so I think because we kind of have to speak two languages often, we have to speak the tech language and we have to speak the music language, it means that we're all a little bit more open to, hey, somebody might not understand what I'm saying, so I better say it in a way that's simple. And I remember when I first started, Ruby said to me that everyone's day one is different. Someone's day one is plugging in the chord, and somebody else's day one is like taking an advanced lesson. And I feel like we actually really take that to heart, and that you can't just assume that everybody knows what you know. Is there any other questions from the room?
In terms of like having music as your day job, especially a day job that requires creative energy, does that help motivate or demotivate your nighttime musical careers? And is there a tension there and things like that? Like as opposed to if you were just, not just, but if you had a barista or a barista.
That's a really good question, Bob. I think it did affect me a bit more when I was teaching, because it's a very intense, emotionally kind of, draining sometimes, because you have to really give it all, but they tend to, like, they learn, they receive, and then they leave. So it can be a bit lonely, but I think I personally definitely get a lot of energy from working as a team. And I feel like, yes, when I do production work like indie, I'm putting in a lot of creative work, but also we're kind of bouncing it off each other too. And we're doing that thing of working as a band and going around the band members kind of thing. It's quite similar to that. And I personally really like doing that. And the encouragement from the team members and other members of the company and the users, it really helps. And I think I've preserved more energy than I thought.
The music I'm making for Melodics is so different to my own that it just feels like a whole separate thing. And it's actually fun because I can get out all of the stuff that I would never dare do on my own music, and like make a trap beat, and then come back to my own and be like, oh yes, the harp. Like, it's so different. Like, it's great because then I have like this outlet for this like completely other part of me. So if anything, it's energizing, like Crystal said. I mean, there are days where you're like, well, I spent 3 hours EQing and I don't really want to go and EQ my own thing now. Like, that can be a little bit tiring, and also like sitting in front of a computer all the time, and then so that's the thing that drains you. But I only work Melodics 3 days a week, so I ensure that I have at least one day where I'm not like doing music at all, and then I do another few days doing my own stuff. So yeah.
Well, I don't have to sit on a door all day like for my job. So it's not really the same, but I think I can just say probably that the thing that Melodics offers me is inspiration to do my music, because I'm surrounded by people. It doesn't matter if it's like my boss or these guys, and it's like they're just like, oh, did you play that new song? And then there's like jamming over on the carpet, which has gotten better lately since we did the new jam space, and then like, you know, there's just weird long threads in Slack about musical topics that you would never think to talk about. So it's just inspiring. It gives you energy to do your music in some ways.
Amazing. Okay, one last question from me. Favorite lesson and why?
Should I go first?
Yeah, you start.
Can I do a course rather than a lesson?
You can do whatever you want.
I'm going to pick the major scales 1.
Says the expert in music theory.
Just because, it's been... So we've got major scales 1 and major scales 2. And major scales 1 has been produced by Indie. And I love her production so much. And what I wanted to say is that scale learning is essential in music. You need to do it, but it's like eating vegetables that you don't like. Like, it's so boring. It's so laborious. But if I were able to practice scales with really mean productions behind it, I would have been so stoked. And I think the users will feel that way. So, major scales 1.
Crystal. I'm gonna counter that with a Crystal course, because we love each other. I love the Common Triads course. I just think it's really comprehensive, really, really well. It's just Crystal can educate so well. Like, she's just so able to communicate concepts in a really simple way through what you're playing. Like, it takes me a while to figure out, how am I actually going to teach this really simply and concisely just through what they're playing. But Crystal does it incredibly, and also the music is amazing. Wait, is one of the lessons Crystal Cabin?
It's, Clay named it.
That lesson goes off, so I highly recommend playing Crystal Cabin. It's great.
Awesome.
I can't think of a specific lesson name. I can think of a specific lesson right now, but I can't think of the name. But any of the drum grooves lessons, I would hit them up if you can give it theirs a go. But yeah, this one pads lesson, I play it all the time. Whenever I have to like repeat a behavior in the app to like get spec or something, I go to this lesson. It's a pads lesson, and there's like this guitar solo in it. And I tried to ask Ben who did it, and he was like, probably Jeremy. But yeah, like when it kicks in, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's just so good.
Jeremy is the other like main producer at Melodics, and he is so phenomenal. He's amazing. If you play any of the like hip hop, like old school hip hop style lessons and stuff, he's probably behind all the jazz stuff. He's just a phenomenal musician. We're so lucky to have him.
Facts.
Word.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to our 3 panelists. Can I give them a round of applause?
Thanks for having us.